February 14th.
Nowhere you'd
Glad to have you all here.
Yeah, so why are we here then?
Because I am not a romantic, that's for sure. So, call to order, and we're going to open with public audience. I think we have a visitor today who would like to say hi, our representative, John Hampton.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey, John. Good.
John Hampton, 9 Knoll Lane, Weatog, Connecticut. I'm Simsbury State Representative, and I wish I came here with bags of money and good news. But, as you know, the governor did release his budget last week, which was devastating to towns like Simsbury. Devastating in many ways, not a strategic budget for a healthy future of our state. So I just want to be here to reassure you, working with Senator Witkos and of course Matt and Tara, and working with Lisa and our different boards and commissions to make sure that we get through this budget process, which is only beginning. This is going to be a long, convoluted process, which starts with the governor's budget, goes through all the committees, and ends up at the end of the pipeline in May. But I've been passing information on to you and to Lisa, and make sure you have the tools and resources you need. But in the meantime, rest assured that many of reps like myself who have felt the impact of this budget will be lobbying hard for Simsbury schools and for our town, which is really so well managed at the town level and at the Board of Ed level. Great administration, great teachers, great parents and students. So it's my job to fight for you at the Capitol this session, and look forward to constant communications with you, coming back with more details and information as things proceed. Hope to see you at the Capitol, of course, to help you lobby for all the support we need. And just want to reassure you, I know we're meeting tomorrow with Lisa and discuss it a little further. But I'll come back and answer any questions and certainly reach out to me. But I wanted to reassure you of my support that this just can't stand for the great town that we are and all that we've built for our town, for our schools. So I just want to let you know I got your back.
Thanks so much. Thank you very much, John.
And,
Appreciate it.
Thanks for all that you do.
We'll call you
I'll see you
often.
tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Absolutely. And thanks for everybody to be here.
Yep.
Thank you very much for coming.
Absolutely.
Appreciate your support. Moving on, any other public audience? Thank you very much. Not seeing any. We'll move on to board and administration communications. Emily?
Hi, everybody. It's been a while since I've shared with you, but I'm going to share a few things going back towards the end of January and a few upcoming things. In the elementary schools, last week, they celebrated the 100th day of school on Wednesday, so had lots of celebrations across all the elementary schools. Also, finished up winter concert season with strings concerts at Squadron and fifth grade concert at Central. The Super Bowl fundraiser, where the elementary schools collect soups and put them in, the different boxes for whichever team they want to win, was very successful. I think the Patriots won at all schools, so they did it. And we're starting the elementary schools with science fair season. I know Terrafil and Squadron opened up their registration, so hopefully those will go well. For the elementary schoolers moving up into middle school, for the 6th graders, there's an open house this Thursday on the 16th where they'll sort of get to walk around, look at different classes, I think hear a little bit about what the transition to middle school is going to be like. And then there was a similar event for 8th graders coming into high school last week, I think 2 weeks ago, maybe on the 6th. At the high school, we also had 42nd Street just closed last night. I hope everyone got a chance to see it, as usual. It's really impressive. We also had, at the middle school and high school level, Scholastic Art Awards were given out recently. We had 11 high schoolers and 5 middle schoolers that won Scholastic Art Awards, which were selected by a jury of professional artists. So there were varying levels, but that's a great accomplishment. And the last few things, we've had some standardized testing. At the high school, we had the AMC math test last week, which is a really challenging math test, I can tell you, to see for people who wanted to challenge themselves. And then also the ASVAB, Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery tests are tomorrow at the high school. And course registration, last thing, closing up right about now. So
Thank you very much, Emerson.
Just wanted to echo it sounds like a lot of great stuff in the arts community. Just wanted the band and strings concert at Squadron Line was phenomenal. Again, what those little guys and girls do in a short amount of time was incredible. So hats off to Megan and the team and just the music folks over there.
Wonderful. Lydia?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. First of all, I was in Washington on behalf of the National School Board Association, and this was actually about a week ago or so, and we had the second equity conference, which was well attended by about 400 participants around the country, and we talk about the equity through policy and strategy of at the board level at the different districts around the country. We also had our Advocacy Institute, and this year was a little bit different tenor. We talk about Congress, the new president, the new challenges, and this is the first time that, at the time, the secretary designee was not able to join us because had not been confirmed yet. But it was very interesting Advocacy Institute this go round with this new administration, and we have a work cut out for us. And now that Secretary DeVos has been confirmed, it's going to be more challenging, but it's something that we have to continue doing on our end as board members around the country. And the priorities this year that we were really trying to talk about and work with are the Child Nutrition Act, which has been an ongoing one, the career tech education, the federal education investments, and more importantly, the educational choice. So that's the new one that would be on the surface, on the radar, and we spent the day on the Hill. I had the opportunity to meet with other colleagues from Connecticut, and we got to talk with Congressman Esty about some of these areas and these issues that are affecting, not only the rest of the country, but also within Connecticut. And then we were just able to meet with staffers from the rest of the congressional delegation, since it was quite a busy time. So back on the home front, through CAVE, it's been busy since Representative Hampton had talked about a little bit about the budget, and we've been very busy on the CAVE level. We also participate with a coalition, What Will Our Children Lose, and we had a press conference on Friday. I don't know if you were able to get to it, John, but we were there and had a press conference about the governor's budget and the budget address and the impacts that are going to affect all the districts in Connecticut. So that is also online via CAVE. We also had a webinar about the governor's address. That's also online in CAVE, and if you're interested in hearing that. So that's what's going on in that, and we have prep tomorrow, so again, we're continuing this conversation since it's very close to last week's address. But the Day in the Hill will be March 9th. I unfortunately will not be here to attend. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be here. I'll be out of town. It's one of my favorite days, but Swiller will be taking the students. I know, Emily, you're going to be in Washington that week, and you'll have the opportunity to talk to the students. You'll see Representative Hampton and Senator Whitcoast later on in the day, and there'll be a lot going on. So I have your packets ready for you, and wear these buttons proudly that you are a friend of public education, and you stand up for public schools, especially at this time. It's really crucial that legislators hear from us and about what's going on and the impact it's going to affect us.
Thank you very much. Tom? Mike?
I'll just mention a couple of things. One is that Bert Leclerc, Neil Sullivan, and I will be in Town Hall tomorrow night at 6 o'clock to speak to the Board of Selectmen and explain the process and the outcome of the recent negotiations for both SEA and SASA. So if you're looking for a meeting to attend, you're welcome to join us. And Neil also let me know that the Facilities and Enrollment Task Force, which was formed some number of years ago and was very active, now only meets occasionally, but Neil's going to plan a meeting for the end of March just to do an update on those two topics, our enrollment and the impact of that on our facilities. And that will be, you'll hear more about that once the date gets set.
Thank you very much. Sue?
So two things. One, very quickly, I wanted to share that I had a great opportunity to be in Mrs. Henry's AP English class junior year to listen to 5 presentations by the students, and what a phenomenal job she has done with them. Great PowerPoints to go alongside a persuasive speech, which was fantastic, and these speeches were between like 6.5 and 7.5 minutes. So to see these kids stand up there and present, it was really, I was glad to have a chance to be in there, and they all did a great job. One of them was on why athletes shouldn't have to take gym. So they were having fun with me. Secondly, curriculum committee met in January, so I just want to give you a quick update. We talked about the UConn early college experience. Andy gave us a lot of great information about what some of our neighboring communities are doing and how we're looking to possibly expand that at Simsbury High. We are going to expand it next year, we hope, with Chinese, if that's been approved or still waiting approval. And what it provides for our kids outside of that college rigor that maybe an AP course does is true college credits transferable to any school for $125 for 3 credits, which if anybody is paying for college, you know that's a bargain. So, and it's $165 for 4. So it's a great way to give our kids kind of a leg up if they're taking that rigorous workload anyway. We currently offer one in the Consumer Health Department, but if we can expand that to include a few more things, we could really serve our students very well that way. The other thing we discussed was the League of Innovative Schools at Henry James, and that is a group that Henry James has joined that promotes regional partnership with forward-thinking innovations in design and delivery of secondary education. So the schools work together to prepare the kids for life, for student-centered learning opportunities, and measuring what matters most. And it really goes along with Henry James' mission of raising the bar and closing the gaps. So it's a great program that they're getting involved in, and they have our support on the curriculum committee, and if you want to know more, we'd be happy to share.
Excellent.
I miss anything?
Nope, we're just in the exploratory phase, just becoming a partner this winter. So once we have more information, I think it would be great for Brian White and myself to come forward and give you more information about it. I just gave him, Brian, where are all the books? I just gave you, we have books to study. So this is one of their documents, global best practices. So this is something I just received today, about 10 copies, and we're going to work with the department supervisors with this as well.
Excellent. So,
Great. Well, some people might be at the Board of Selectmen tomorrow night. We'll be holding our next SEPTO meeting, Special Education Parent Teacher Organization, here at the Board of Ed Conference Room. The focus will be, we will be having a representative from the Department of Developmental Services, DDS, to speak with parents about services, access, and advocacy. Representative Hampton is also asked to stop by to solicit feedback from our parent community relative to DDS and other topics as well. So he'll be back with us tomorrow evening. And then on Thursday, we'll be having a planning meeting for the Community for Care, planning our next program, which will be in March, and the topic will be the legalization that's been discussed around marijuana in the state of Connecticut. So we'll be presenting a panel. Certainly, Chris is a planning member on that committee, so we'll be providing more details to the board as those final arrangements become final.
excellent. Neil?
I have a great celebration to share with you tonight. You may recall earlier in the year, Paul Kulikowski had sent me an email about the start of our adult education classes in English as a second language. These are our town residents who have come from around the world and sign up in our continuing education department to learn English and often to take the citizenship test. And the reason why it's so popular is because of the educator who helps run that program, Mike Angelillo. He's known as Mr. Mike by his students, and it is, I'll give you a little bit of data on him. He started in this role in 1973, so he's in his 44th year as the teacher of Americanization and citizenship in our continuing education program. And we just learned about a week or so ago that the statewide organization, the Connecticut Association for Adult and Continuing Education, named Mike the Educator of the Year. So he is, it's certainly well-deserving. In the classroom, it is a joyous place. There's a lot of laughter. They learn English, they learn about American society, they also learn about all the cultures around there are over 20 students from 15 different countries right now. Many of them sign up long-term. And there's going to be a celebration at the Mystic Marriott at the end of March where Mike and Paul Kulikowski and Dave Kroom will be attending, and one of Mike's longtime students is going to be attending the luncheon with him. So we certainly want to congratulate Mike and thank Paul and Dave for nominating him for this well-deserved award.
That's great, thanks.
So just a couple of things, to give you an update on our math pilot. We're deep into it. Teachers are piloting math units, K-8 actually, at this point right now. So we have a visiting team that will go to Farmington Friday morning to get a sense of some of the work that they're doing with Math and Focus as they transition out of the investigations pilot to see what Math and Focus looks like. So that's happening on Friday morning, and Betsy Gonzalez will be participating in that as well. We have early release on Friday. It's a building-based day, so we have a variety of activities that will be happening across the district on Friday afternoon. And then just this week, I was just notified, we have new national art standards, and Laurel Archambault, who is a longtime art teacher at Henry James School, has been asked to create a webinar, a model unit that she will be doing along with Shannon Gagne to present to the committee that will be used as an exemplar across the state. So they're looking at Simsbury for some of the work that we're doing, and Laurel has just done some fantastic work. So once we see it, I'll make sure that you get a chance to look at
That's
it.
great. Wonderful. Mr. Leclerc?
This evening.
Excellent. Mr. Curtis?
Just a quick comment on snow days. So it is not my favorite part of the gig, so to speak, but I have to say, the toughest piece is when I had to make a call on the show on Sunday, which was the last show. So I was really worried about the attendance and how it would impact Monday night. But last night I was there. It was pretty much a full house, and it was great. But you know, as those I know, a lot of us has seen the show. It's quite a performance. The kids put in so much time and effort, and it's just a true testament to the talent of both our staff that works with the kids, but our kids are just truly phenomenal in those ways. So,
That was a good call.
The show did
That
go
was
on.
a
It
very
was a tough
dangerous day.
call. It
The
was.
roads were horrible on Sunday, so that was.
Those are not easy calls.
Excellent. So I have a couple things today. First, I'd like to thank all of our principals. Mr. Kirk, we're going to be bringing our budget together today, and I'm so glad they're all here for support.
Thank you very much.
Average know that all the principals are here from every school we have and administration. So thank you so much for coming and being here. I have a comment about one of our alumni who yesterday won a Grammy. He won a Grammy. Jeff Saunders went to Central School in Henry James and Simsbury High, and he is currently playing bass in the Mark O'Connor Band. And the band won a Grammy for Best Bluegrass Album of the Year. So it was very exciting. I was a little excited. The other thing I'd like to make comment of, and primarily for the people who are watching, February 20th is a special birthday for one of our own. Marie Miller is 90 years old on the 20th of February. So if anyone wants to send her a card, please send it here to the Board of Education office and we'll make sure she gets it. But I think that she is a little under the weather with bronchitis and she's kind of fighting a little bit, but she would be greatly cheered by any joy anyone wanted to send. So I want to remember her, and thank you very much. And so with that, we can move on to our meeting. I have the minutes of January 10th. Anyone have any comments, questions, or corrections?
Motion to approve?
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. All those opposed? Passes. And then we can move on to.
Oh, I have to abstain, I wasn't here.
We're going to have Lydia abstaining.
I'll
Thank you very much, Sue.
I can't second, I have to abstain.
I'll second.
Personnel.
A couple of items for your action tonight. The first two involve announced retirements. The first comes from Clark Bachelor, a social studies teacher at the high school who's been with us for 12 years. Clark, how can a guy retire after 12 years? It's because Clark's full career in the military before he got into teaching. He did a tour in the Marines and then a full 20 years of service in the U.S. Coast Guard. and then actually worked in Coast Guard admissions, and then decided to become a teacher. So he's been a history teacher with us in both our freshman World Civ class, and more recently a fabulous advanced placement U.S. history teacher. And Clark is going to retire at the end of this year, so it's a June 30th retirement for Clark. And then Carol Carlson. Carol was a math teacher at Henry James. She loves Henry James and was one of the most passionate teachers there. Carol's been on a non-salaried leave of absence this year, making some decisions about whether the time for retirement was right. And she met with me a few weeks ago and said the time is right. And she stays active with us as a tutor with some very special cases and does a great job. But she will also retire effective June 30th. So the motion is the board to approve the retirements of James Clark Bachelor and Carol Carlson effective June 30th, 2017.
Second. Moved and second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much.
And then one other item is a resignation. Emily Ortman was a part-time fine arts teacher here in Simsbury. I had the pleasure to hire her for a part-time job at Simsbury High School 4 years ago. And then she was transferred to Squadron Line, where she rounded out their teaching staff, was extremely successful in both places. She also has been on a leave this year because of the birth of her second child, and has decided that she's going to stay home and raise her 2 children. I told Emily when I spoke with her that when those kids get off to school and she's ready to come back, we'll see if we got a spot for her. So, but for now, it is a resignation effective June 30th for Emily Ortman.
Anyone have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thanks. Second? Thanks, Sue. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Mr. Leclerc?
Thank you. We have the second round, I guess, of 3 for our cultural enrichment K-6 group that coordinates all of the programming in our elementary schools. And the most recent donations from all 5 PTOs is for $5,254.50, and we would ask that the Board of Ed approve these gifts for these programming purposes.
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Lydia. Second? Anyone? Thanks. Jeff, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And I think we're back to you, Ms. Leclerc, for 6-year capital improvement.
We had repeated the same draft number 2 that the board discussed last week, and we did the PowerPoint last week on the 2 projects, the Henry James renovation phase 3, as well as the Simsbury High School tennis court replacement projects that would actually be in the first year of the 6-year CIP and would be part of the voter process if it moves forward. And based on the charter, this evening is the meeting where we would need the formal 6-year plan to be moved forward to the Board of Selectmen for part of the total plan that the Board of Selectmen is in charge of. And then the next step would be presentation in March at a workshop of all of the capital projects there, before then seeing what goes on to a public hearing in April. So this is the last opportunity to, I guess, ask questions about anything on this plan. In regard to the Simsbury High School tennis court project, I just wanted to give a brief update since last week. There were some questions. Jeff Pinney's here. There were some questions about the options that we showed for moving some of the tennis courts, and because of the proximity to wetlands and the flood plain, we just wanted to stress, and there was concerns raised about doing this with the idea that we could build a building in the future that would give us the option of having permanent restrooms and kitchen and so forth. Just want to stress that the option that's in this plan now is the one that gives us the choice of building a footprint outside or inside that floodplain, that the consultants that we're working with, Mylone and McBroom, did do some conversation with the town planning and zoning staff. There'll be some follow-up, but it is still an option that we'd like to keep open, that there could be a building in close proximity to the turf field. And one of the clarifications that I was given by our consultant is that it's not in the floodway, which is a more difficult area to build in. It's in the flood plain. And then secondly, the one other update I had that was, this is still an up to estimate, and we have a 15% contingency as they do further design, and they're waiting for some further soil results back. We would likely see this number go down somewhat.
Thank you very much. So right now, you need a motion from us to move these numbers forward. And we have discussed this at length multiple times. So does anyone have any further questions or comments about these projects and putting forward this?
I think that Henry James, it's a big number, but it gives a facility that matches the quality that the school produces. Really great for the town, great for the school.
Anyone has it for the town? Jeff?
No, it's absolutely.
Anyone else? I'd entertain a motion.
Move that the Board of Ed 6-year capital improvement plan for the period 2018-2023 be adopted.
Second. Thanks, Jeff. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for all your work, Bert. It was a lot of work.
Yep.
Appreciate all the effort.
Brian and I have some more finishing touches to do. We know we have a good overview, and you've seen it, and we'll keep
Great.
working with Castle Blues and try to provide the best information we can.
We appreciate that. Thank you. Moving on to the presentation of the superintendent's 2017-2018 budget.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Double thumbs up.
Yeah.
Good.
Try.
All right. So thank you again to my administrators. You know, this process really starts October, November with their input. And the way we structure it really culminates with my presentation tonight. You know, I thought we had a very productive workshop and conversation at our last meeting. So there's really not going to be surprises, so to speak, in this budget tonight. You've seen everything that's here, and I'll just, my plan would be to work through the presentation and then open up the floor to questions. One thing I did do, and John, thank you for coming out tonight, excuse me, and framing the governor's budget proposal. I provided some information on that, just in terms of impact for us to think about and look at. And we'll certainly have time. We passed the line items out at our last budget workshop. People have had some time to review those, and we can answer any questions that you have along those lines as well. So, 3 parts to the budget presentation, some contextual factors to go through. Return on investment, always take some time to celebrate and evaluate where we are as a district and the things that we're proud of. I think that's important. And then get into kind of the dollars and the cents of what really is driving our costs. So as you know, and you've heard me talk about before, we're a district with a strong vision for continuous improvement. We're structured that way. We've worked that way for many years. We align our resources with our strategic priorities. The little picture I have there of the instructional core is really a reminder that all the decisions we make, even at the board level in terms of resources, impact that relationship between how our teachers teach our kids and the programs and the content that we have. So it's a good visual that we work with all the way down to an instructional model, but I think it fits in terms of how we plan and how we need to be thoughtful about what we do. So that being said, I feel strongly that the budget we present to you tonight is in line with our district vision. I bulleted out some of the things that this budget supports. Certainly high academic achievement, social and emotional well-being of our students. We've talked at length about potential implementation of a new math program and the need to support that. And currently this budget we move forward tonight supports current level of programming. We haven't made programmatic cuts and is built within our class size guidelines, which we know is an important value to our community. And Neil shared quite a bit of information along those lines in his presentation. So an overall increase in spending of 2.48%, which represents a little over $1.6 million. And we'll work through an exercise tonight to show you what some of those main drivers are and where some of the reductions and offsets are to get to that 2.48% increase. So first with the context, the per pupil expenditure, an audited number that we look at on an annual basis. Certainly the Board of Finance looks at this number as well. This is just a year-over-year comparison to show you that our overall rank and in the state is pretty similar to what it was last year. Also have some information on recent budget increases, with the note that the last 3 years, we've been fortunate. I really believe we have to create budgets in a collaborative effort with both the town and the Board of Finance and meet their goal of not to raise the mill rate in the town. We do know that when we got together early this year, looked at fixed costs, we realized that our fixed costs were up. We would not be able to attain that goal this year. But wanted to bring that current history up because we have had a good stretch of lower budget increases, accomplish that goal, but still build program in a productive way. Enrollment, again, Neil has provided a lot of background information on our enrollment, but we're projected to go down 74 students. Again, much of that reduction at the secondary level. And as we do every year, we talk about really analyzing class size and taking what we've kind of coined the phrase of responsible reductions of staffing levels as we become a smaller organization. This allows us to kind of right-size our organization. It also allows us to reinvest dollars in our organization, which we plan to do in this budget and we have in past budgets. But you can see as a result of the decline of 74 students, we plan to reduce our overall FTE initially by 5.6, which is close to $500,000. So it's a pretty large offset to us. I did want to take a minute, so you can just move to the next slide, thanks, and talk through a few things about special education. And this came really on the heels of Sue's presentation and some conversations with board members. We talk a lot about our overall reduction in student enrollment as a way to reduce some costs through reduction of FTE. We also talk about our really comprehensive special education programming and that this board has allocated a lot of resources, particularly over the last 3 years, to build a program, create the supports that our students need to be successful. This is a demonstration that the enrollment trend in special education is different from the overall enrollment trend in our district. That is not unlike surrounding communities. They see the same thing, but I think it's important to note when we've added services in special education, we haven't seen that same decline in students. So next slide, please. That being said, our overall expenditures in special education have increased, and we've talked about that over the past couple of years. And the question was posed to me, we don't present a program-based budget, but what are the total expenditures in our special ed programming? So Burke and I put that together. We could take that right from our audited ED001 report, which goes to the state of Connecticut. And you can see that our overall expenditures in these main categories are close to $15 million, inclusive of our IDEA grant, so inclusive of grant sources that make up 21% of our overall budget. So we're proud of those programs that we provide for students, but I think it's important to note that they make this up a substantial part of our cost and expenditures. So this is always the fun part. You get to brag a little bit about the district and how proud we are of the work of not only our awesome kids. I've always said we're fortunate to have the quality of students that we have, but we have an incredibly talented staff and a supportive community, and we've talked about those kind of pillars of strength. So the niche ratings are something that we brought forward to this board over the course of the past couple years. They take into several accounts programming, achievement levels, different resources you have at your schools, and they kind of put together a cumulative rating system so that you can see in overall school districts we're in the top 10. Only Glastonbury and Avon are with us outside of Fairfield County. And you can see the best public high schools in Connecticut, Simsbury at number 6. So certainly a lot to be proud of. This board knows more than anybody else the effort that's gone into providing programmatic opportunities, particularly for our students at the high school, but wanted to share that very positive data with you. and then a little bit of achievement data. We share this with the board throughout the year, but do want to bring it back at budget time. I focused on the high school here because it's the culminating experience for our students, but you can see how well our students do relative to other districts, comparative districts in our DIRG. And those CAP scores actually, I believe they were the top CAP scores not only in the DIRG but in the state, which is really nice to be able to talk about. But overall, strong performance in math, strong performance in science, strong performance in English language arts. So the next chart, I haven't brought this one out in a couple years. This brings, we're often asked to talk about our per pupil expenditures and really how that weighs against student achievement, and how do you kind of look at that data point. So this is an interesting way just to think about it. And Chris, I'm glad you're here tonight. When you were on the board, you used to coin a phrase that, we provide a really good product and good program at a very reasonable cost. And this is a chart, I think, that exemplifies that. So if you look at the vertical axis, that's we took the science scores that obviously we did extremely well there. The percentage of students that passed that science test in the state of Connecticut, highest in the state, certainly highest in the DIRG. This is a representation of other districts in our DIRG. Along that horizontal axis are the per pupil expenditure. So what you can see is extremely high achievement at a cost that's about in the middle. And I think that's something that we need to continue to talk about. Do we have the lowest per pupil expenditure in the DIRG? No, we don't. But have we reinvested dollars as we've created responsible budgets? We have. And that's why I feel we've been able to continue to move forward, provide great programs that we have at a reasonable cost and still perform at very high levels. So this is a snapshot of what that looks like with our science scores. Okay, so when we talk about specific dollars and what makes up our budget, that's almost the Pac-Man slide, right? We know that we're an organization of people, of educators. So 85% of our overall costs are in salaries and in insurance and benefits that go with those salaries. So when we talk about really analyzing where we can find cost-saving measures, we need to really look there, which I think we do. That's why I put up this slide about the reasonable reductions of FTE. We do know that this year, one of the big differences in my budget presentation this year compared to past years, which we'll see, is the insurance line item. We haven't had as fortunate experience this year in insurance as we have in the past years, and it's leading to a much larger expenditure there. But this is just a quick visual. This is taken from our budget book that we put together later in the public, just as a reminder that we're a people-driven organization, and that's where the majority of the cost lie. So for the major drivers in building the budget and really getting to the specific percentage increase in dollars, you can see the top bullet are the impact of our contracts. So about $1.4 million or a 2.12% increase just with rolling the organization forward. Okay, so that's the same size of the organization and rolling forward the commitments financially. We are requesting an additional 3.6 certified staffing positions, which we've talked at great length about, which add 305,000 or close to 0.5%, 0.45. The insurance and pension, over $1 million. So a very significant increase this year due to some of the experience we've had in lower levels of funding in our self-insurance fund. A 1.71% increase there. And as Aaron talked about last week, some requests in professional development, largely due to the new math implementation, which I know we all feel is very important. So with the PD and some other smaller additions, the final 0.21%, put a pretty significant increase of over $3 million or 4.49%. So what I'd like to do next is, I have one more slide just on the quick proposals, then we'll walk that number back. But the 3.6 FTE with the social worker, which we talked about, provide increased levels of social and emotional support. We added a social worker last year. We've really seen the benefits of that, seeing more students with social and emotional issues and families that need that type of support. The math coach, which I know many of you at the board table have voiced strong opinions on in terms of really helping us with the implementation, not only of the new program, but supporting teachers in implementing best practices. It is an area of relative weakness when you look at our math data, and that's a resource we would really like to advocate for. And then the new schedule, which Aaron and Neil have talked about, is FTE that we feel we can absorb within Henry James itself, but adds an additional 1.6 when you pull it out and look at it that way. So then we kind of look at the offsets to bring the number back down to an area that we feel would be reasonable to present to you, and then in the future present to the Board of Finance. So we have 6 known retirements, and we talk about the savings we can capture from each of those retirements, and essentially that calculus is kind of the high-level salary going out and potentially hiring a mid-level salary person coming in. So you capture about $25,000 per head there, and a reduction of about $150,000. So it's just, it's pretty substantial. In analyzing the class sizes, and Neil put this out in great detail to the board, we feel we can decrease one section, K6. Not a lot, because enrollment's pretty stable at the elementary level at this point. But that's an additional FTE there. And then as we start to right now, in the next couple weeks, we'll really have some hard data on how course registrations come in at the secondary level, but we believe at the secondary level we can capture 4.6 FTE in grades 7 through 12. So overall, total reduction of about $625,000, or 0.93%. So the next piece I wanted to talk about is the use of the non-lapsing account and how we can potentially use the funds that we think will be there to further offset the operating costs. This is something we've done in past years. The difference is we haven't done it until the end. I think with the higher fixed costs and able to get that number down, we need to think about these strategies a little bit earlier in the budget process, which is why I proposed them now. But Burke reported out on a recent quarterly report that with current spending trends, we feel we only have to utilize about $40,000 of the current $387,000 or so that are in the non-lapsing account, which would potentially free up, as you can see on the slide, $335,000 to offset operating costs for the future years. So what we would propose to do there is take that full $335,000 and apply it to 3 line items. The insurance, a reduction of $100,000. Transportation, I don't have the line item in front of me for the exact amount. And outplacement would be the volatile areas and special ed that we would apply the $335,000, we'd split it across those 3 line items and take the reduction on the operating cost and still have the funding available to run our business the way we feel we need to. It wouldn't really be a cut, but it would lessen the impact to the operating budget. The other thing that we have communicated to administrators and people that are involved with budgeting in our district is looking at what we're calling a soft budget freeze, really looking at funds available in areas like equipment right now, instructional supplies, and making very prudent decisions on what absolutely needs to be purchased, with the hope of year-end potentially freeing up even more dollars to move into the non-lapsing account if we hit a rough spot. This plan was certainly made before the governor's budget came out, so we've hit a rough spot. So these are things that we certainly are going to need to think about in different ways. So I think this is a strategy. It's sound. We've used it before. We selected the line items that we did because there are areas of volatility. There are areas that the Board of Finance has also been in conversation with us about. So I think from a coherence standpoint, it makes a lot of sense to offset those particular line items. The next piece I wanted to cover briefly is we project to see an increase in the attendance grant of a little bit over $400,000. And that increase in revenue, we believe, would provide an opportunity in some years maybe to enhance program, but not the case this year. I think it provides an opportunity to alleviate, provide some relief on the operating side. And we would propose, as the line item detail demonstrates, a reduction of $165,000 in equipment, $235,000 in technology, move that to the grant, enable us essentially to have the same type of spending but alleviate what we put towards the taxpayers. And I think those are areas a little safer and strategic to do those areas than put staff in those areas. I feel a little more comfortable with that strategy at this point. So when you kind of roll the whole picture together, and I won't go through it in every line item because we kind of just built it and walked through it together, but the top of this this page are really the adds, are kind of the upward drivers to the cost. So you can see the things we just talked about, the contracts, the new staffing, the insurance and pension, rolled all together of a 4.49% increase. And then we walk back from that, the exercise I just took you through. You see the bottom line item of the proposed use of both the grant and the non-lapsing fund is substantial. It's $735,000, or a reduction of a little bit over 1%, and that's what would bring us to the total number of the 2.48% that I put before you tonight to consider as a budget. I think it's a budget that enhances strategically some of the things we need, but most importantly keeps our programs in place and allows us to continue to move forward the type of school system that we've been incredibly proud of. I just have a couple more slides and we'll open it up to dialogue. We also need to present and vote on in our next meeting the non-public portion of our budget, which in totality is a little over $500,000, and we're proposing a $3,000 increase. To remind you of what this is really made up of, it's our private schools, it's nursing, it's transportation, and there's another line item in there on culture and parks and recreation, which is some of our field maintenance. So a slight decrease just to account for salaries and some of the other movement in that line item for you to consider. I wanted to put that out there a couple weeks before you voted on it. The last slide circles back to what John came here and talked about a little bit tonight, is that we're in an interesting situation now, one that kind of leaves us as a board, I think the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen, in a little bit of limbo because we've had a pretty dramatic proposed budget from the governor, one that would impact Simsbury to the negative in terms of when you look at the Board of Ed and the town together, to $4.3 million. Really substantial in terms of new responsibilities for teacher pension, a different educational cost share funding mechanism, a different special education funding mechanism, really drastic measures that impact communities like our community. So I wanted to put a little information together just to talk about the magnitude. Tom, you asked a good question the other day. We wanted to put a little bit of information on this slide to give the board a better understanding of each $1 million increase that we talk about in spending raises taxes 1.32%, or $500,000. So that kind of gives you a generalized idea of what we're talking about when we're talking about $4 million. I mean, it's a substantial impact. My budget increase of 2.48 represents a $1.6 million increase. When we think of creating scenarios or having conversations and asking questions, every 1% reduction you take from our budget equals $674,000. As I demonstrated before through the graph, we're driven by people and benefits. That's the equivalent of really 9 full-time people. So if you think about a zero-based budget, you think about 22 full-time people. You look at the 4.3 million and put it in terms of people, it's 57 people. So you think about the value of the whole thing that's being presented, it's over 70 full-time equivalents, which is an enormous part of the organization. That's why people are up in arms, so to speak, is because when you look at it on the surface, it is very difficult to wrap your head around how to start planning to react to that. Because the reality is, we've always planned our budgets based on the governor's budget. So I know that we will be in conversations to come, not only with our board a little bit, but certainly with the town and with the Board of Finance, to protect our wonderful assets, to advocate for them, but also to have dialogue back and forth. I would think about potentially what different scenarios could look like. So I've talked for a long time.
Thank you very much.
I'll open up the floor for questions.
Anyone who wants to start?
I have several questions.
Okay, Tom?
The first one's a little one. And now I'm just wondering if you have just a rough estimate of any possible contribution this year to the non-lapsing account. Do you have a rough idea of what we might be able to achieve? I mean, is it significant?
I don't think not significant, Tom, to be honest, when you look at the governor's proposal, but significant if we had to move a 0.1 or a 0.2, it could help us with that based on what we could save, maybe $100,000, a couple $100,000 if we're real fortunate.
Okay. On this, thinking in terms of the potential disaster scenario, and this is just a question from my own education and perspective. If we had to, you mentioned in that slide that if we had to go to a 0% increase, we'd be looking at 22 FTE reduction, and for a 4.3 million cut, we'd be looking at 57 FTE reduction. Do we even have the flexibility to accomplish a reduction of that magnitude given the nature of our contracts and tenure? And my sense is that we can't even do that. Even if we wanted to, we couldn't do it. In the
not of that magnitude. I think if we were to look at scenarios, I think one thing we'd have to consider, and I'd be interested in your input, is, the Board of Finance, when we met in the fall, we had a really productive meeting, I thought a 3-board meeting, where they put out kind of targets and guidance. We recognized that with fixed costs, we wouldn't be able to come in. They didn't believe it'd be reasonable to come in with the goal of a flat mill rate. They had a target for us of about 2%. That was before any of this kind of hit. Could I see putting a scenario like that together and creatively trying to make it be doable, so to speak, although not ideal as a starting point? Yes. Tom, for me to think about right now in short order, $4.3 million, it's not sustainable. It
may not even be administratively possible. The only other comment I wanted to make, and then I'll yield the floor to another board member, has to do with these new FTEs that were in the recommendation, which you and I discussed recently. And as I recall, one of them is a social worker. And I buy into that 100%. Based on the justification that's given for it. And the other one is an additional math coach. And we now have, I think, 2 or 3 years of gradually clawing back those math coaches that we lost a while back. And this is just a perspective as a board member that I just offer, and I'm not looking for a response. But if I could wave a magic wand, I'd vote for 2 math coaches rather than just one, because there's going to these crises that we're entering into right now. We still have the fundamental obligation to keep the quality of education in this town where it needs to be. And the only weak spot that I have experienced in my 2.5 years on this board is in that. And I would just observe that if there's any way we can be even more aggressive on math coaching, I would certainly be supportive of that.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have anything to say?
My only comment, I guess, is the comments I've made repeatedly over the years on budgets, that I think the quality of the school system is sort of the fundamental basis for housing values in Simsbury. People move to a town in large part based on their evaluation of the quality of the education, public education that's available in that town. They're prepared to pay premium price to get a premium education. I think we've been successful in delivering that. So in the course of doing the budget analysis, I'll repeat, as I've said in the past, that I think it's critical that we continue to provide the funding that's necessary to maintain the rankings that Matt has put up here. And also point out that The board, I think, has done an admirable job of controlling expenditures over the years, and this is now year 8 of sub 1.9% budget increases. I don't think any town in Connecticut, or any Board of Ed in Connecticut can probably match that. And in fact, 7 of those years were sub 1.6. So it's a remarkable track record. If you look at just the increase in our health insurance costs, that's 1.59 for this year alone. That 1.59 has been kind of where we've been in total budget increase for the last number of years. So this is, I think, probably the toughest year that I've seen, and I've been on the board, I think, 15 or 16 years now. And this is the toughest year we've gotten. You know, the horizon doesn't look very good, but we're doing what we can faced with the conditions that we have. So, you know, I think Matt and Burke and Neil and Sue and the entire leadership team, principals included, you guys have done a wonderful job in putting this together in the face of some pretty tough circumstances. And thanks for all your effort. And I think this is a responsible budget. I think this is the budget we should take forward.
Sue?
For me, it's really kind of a process question, I guess. I look at this and you have my full support at 2.48%. I'm not been here as long as Mike and Lydia, but I agree that we've done a really good job at putting forward a great school system with being very mindful of how we are spending the taxpayers' money. And I think we've done that admirably. And your preparation is phenomenal. So my thanks to all of you. But I guess, so we vote on 2.48%, and then the governor pulls the rug out from underneath us. And I know Representative Hampton says he's got our back, but there's only going to be so much he can do. And there's going to be a shoe that drops somewhere down the road. So how do, I guess, for people that are watching, for myself, how do we handle that? We put this forward, but really the likelihood of it staying here is not great. So I guess I'm wondering.
I think that, first of all, I think everybody's struggling a little bit to absorb the magnitude of what has been presented, right? So I know that the Board of Finance meets on Tuesday. I would think this would be a topic of conversation. At some point, we're going to have to define that process, right? So if I look to what we've done in past years, I look to what we did last year when there was a much smaller situation in magnitude, but a lot of conversation about a reduction in educational cost share to Simsbury of about $600,000. There was a kind of request of the Board of Finance and conversation among the 3 boards of how we would look at potentially absorbing some of that. I would imagine, and I haven't had this conversation with the Board of Finance yet, to be honest with you, that there will be some type of conversation about a scenario or what do things look like. I think that's conversation at some level we're going to have. I'm not saying it's a $4.3 million conversation, right, but is it the ECS portion? Is it some level of what would your budget look like if in that scenario it held? These are things we've done in the past. Quite honestly, in talking to my team, the reason we haven't done that in recent years is because we were all very clear of what the goal was. The goal was to protect programming, but get to the flat mill rate. We were able to do that without showing a whole bunch of reduction scenarios, right? I would think there will have to be some conversation amongst the board, Susan, of how that process will be defined. And I think that's when there's going to have to be some reasonableness about what's worth looking at and what's not, to your point, Tom, you know?
So
I don't know that it's a productive exercise to come back and say, what does it look like 4.3 down, right? It's just you can't run your organization that way, and there's no indication that that's what they're asking us to do. But
no, and I don't mean to say that.
I think we'll have to define that process collectively, much like we do in a 3-board meeting beforehand.
So I guess my in a nutshell, we vote for the budget, however we vote tonight. And we pass it on, or
We don't vote till next meeting.
In 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
We pass it along. We get an opportunity changes happening will have the opportunity to go through our budget. It's not going to be left to somebody other than
Yeah.
us to go.
Well, we have an opportunity to present to, so if you just go to that next slide real quick, to present to the Board of Finance in March. So that's an opportunity certainly for them to ask questions about our budget. And I'm sure we will have a little more clarification prior to that about maybe what they'd be interested in taking a look at. And we'll certainly have the next week to think through anything that this board would ask that we look at, you know.
Okay.
Seems to me the only option open to us at the moment is to base our decision on what we know, what's in front of us, and then, you know, beyond that, then we're in uncharted territory, and it's not going to resolve itself, Representative Hampton, until, you know, what, could be June, you know, easily.
Yeah,
And
maybe.
it could be post the town vote on the budget, you know.
And you'll remember last year, they did move out the referendum date to try to give us a little more time.
I think the latest they can move it out to is June.
But yeah,
So, I mean,
it's not a timeline.
we don't know that the
Right,
state
to
will
get
be
the
done by
tax
then.
bills out, they have a hard
Right.
deadline.
We could all be here in late June or early July taking $1 million or whatever the number is on the budget, trying to find, you know, but I don't know, there's not much else we can do.
Anybody have anything else they want to bring?
Two things. I mean, first one is, I think the pie chart is one of the things that kind of really stood out to me is that the quality of our programs, or the quality of the people that are running it, and 85% of the budget is people. So I think, okay, can we do a little trimming here and there, and at that 15%, you don't trim with the like slash to make any motion to that 2.48. But you know, to me, it's making sure that the people that work here are getting paid appropriately, and we want the best people.
Right.
The second thing is I'm just continually impressed on how much work goes into this process by the team and the whole administrative team. That every time we ask a question about, you know, why this or why that, there's always a thoughtful answer, and things get explained. So it's not just throwing things down, and I hope people realize that you know, the slides summarize it, but there's a lot of work and a lot of thoughtful work that goes into
Hours
this.
and hours and hours.
And I'm continually impressed, and I think it just gets better every year.
So just quickly, just to pick up on one thing that Todd said, actually the slide I thought was impactful, just like that, is the spending per pupil science. I mean, we are right dead in the middle within the DERG as well as the state. So sort of to your point on return on investment, that is an incredibly impactful slide. And that just says that we are doing an incredible job with the money that we're putting into the program. So any reductions is incredibly impactful. I just would also then encourage, because I think the Board of Finance is going to ask these same very questions about the governor's budget and what's going to happen. I would just encourage all of us to be at that Board of Finance meeting on the 14th. I think it's imperative we're all there.
Good point. Anyone else? I think that, again, thank you for all of your work and the ridiculous amount of hours that you put in to be so thoughtful and so strategic in where you can make cuts and where you can, and going back to Chris Kelly, we can make our cuts, but we can't cut to the bone. And he always said that. And he's like, you gotta really be careful when you start losing capacity and losing capabilities. So I think, but my thoughts on talking to the Board of Finance is, from previous years of experience, they will ask us, they will send this back to us very quickly with fears of the $4 million coming at us. And I think that they might want to see something that isn't just this most reasonable budget. Maybe we should, how complicated it would be to prepare a 2.0 or a 1.75 or something for them for a comparison of how deep those cuts look. I don't know if anyone else feels that we should do something like that to prepare for.
You mean reducing the percentage increase to a somewhat lower number?
Well, I think.
Just for a
You're talking about a
comparison.
contingency plan.
Just a contingency plan, a comparison plan.
It's a pool of 110 basis, however many basis. A 0.5% or 1%. I would only piggyback on that question, and it is that we, as it's already been said, we know that this is not going to be reality. We just know. And in some informal discussions I was able to have, thank goodness, with Matt, I started to think, can we put together a point of view about the budget for this school system that says, listen, we could do this and we can do this, but if we get to that, we're cutting to the bone. If we get to that, we will have a measurable impact on quality of the product. And that's really what I'd like to know. What would constitute and almost from our standpoint, irresponsible level of reduction in spending on our educational system?
I'm sorry, Tom. I didn't mean to cut you off. What I would suggest is that maybe we go ahead with this budget, present it to the Board of Finance, but also let the Board of Finance know that we have in our minds a process that we would start to do that sort of analysis if we get a number back that we have to match. I hate to be in a position where we put a list up by that meeting on the 14th or whatever it is and say, well, here's all the other stuff we'd do if we had. I don't think we want to go down. We're not ready to do that yet. I think we just need to say that, look, we understand that there's this dark cloud out there, and we have a process in mind. We'll schedule special meetings. We'll do a series of analysis and look at some of the options that are out there, and we're ready to trigger that process if that really starts. Yeah, but I'd be very reluctant to sort of
I agree.
put a list.
100%.
And maybe some of that's defining that process together with them.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, and we also took the 4% down to the 2 point, we took the initial budget down. You showed the reductions that we've already done, so that is a statement.
Over the years, we have done that, and I'm very, very, very leery, on your suggestion. And I think Mike and I have been here the longest, so we have seen that over my past 20 years. We have done that prematurely. And that has signals to Board of Finance, okay, you've already done your homework ahead of time and you see what there is. I'm just concerned that if we start showing a decrease in the percentage where it does impact the overall budget of FTEs, that will trigger sentiment amongst Board of Finance and also Board of Selectmen and also the voters in town that you still can produce a quality education with reducing X amount. What they don't see is the actual budget and those few targeted slides that get to that. So I think after we conclude and even embellish more on some of those targeted few slides, that they understand that this is really the impact that's going to have. So again, and I want to ask John, this is the governor's budget. What are you hearing at the legislature, though, about the legislative budget? I mean, we are not the only district that, in terms of the ECS, when the governor had mentioned, taking from more of the affluent districts and giving to alliance districts and some of urban. What are you hearing up there? Because there are other districts like ours that are being affected.
Yeah, there's many towns. I mean, 31 got increases, so the rest of the, 169 towns, 100 plus. So there's a lot of outrage and opposition and a lot of dialogue about the fairness and equity of this budget, and balancing it on the backs of our students and our teachers and our parents. And so there is a lot of pushback already, and so the fight is really just beginning, and starts with the Appropriations Committee, and it's important that all of you and our parents and students get to the Capitol and submit testimony and really make a lot of noise.
Well, John, just to hitchhike on Lydia's very excellent question. We read in the newspaper that everybody is saying this is the governor's budget, but it bears no resemblance to what is actually going to happen by June. There's going to be all kinds of changes that are going to be made. And I think the question, and if you would be willing to take a crack at it, would be based on what you know and what you sense, what changes do you think will be made in the budget between now and June based on the negotiations between the legislature and the governor's office?
there's so many moving parts, and a lot of the unknowns are what happens with the union negotiations and the concessions we get back there. And, there's all sorts of tax proposals out there, revenue proposals out there that are going to be debated, marijuana, recreational taxes, tolls, you name it. It's just really a moving target of conversation and a lot of unknowns, and a lot of, we've got towns being really pitted against each other, which is not where we want to be, fighting against each other. And so it's going to be an epic process. And we'll need a lot.
Certainly one thing Burke and I can do, we both plan to attend the next Board of Finance meeting, is ask a little bit about process, right?
Perfect.
And clarify that, and we'd be able to do that before we can share that with you at the next board meeting.
28th?
And I think that would be helpful,
That sounds great.
at least let us know what the expectations will be on the 14th.
Yeah, I just, to your point of having an option or a contingency car, I just think that we'd be shooting in the dark. That we just have no idea where they're going to have us go until we know what kind of reductions we could be looking at. To have you all do all that work to come up with a number that's not even scratching the surface, I would hate to see us have you all spend that time doing that.
I think that's all great feedback, and I just, I think this budget shows where we should be if we just go straight forward with what we got going on. It shows where we're trying to capitalize on any opportunities we can capitalize, brings in a very reasonable budget, very close to where they actually asked us to come in. I think it's very responsible, and I think it's great. I just was kind of trying to get feedback as to how you wanted to present or process, so I appreciate everybody's interest and thoughts. Very thoughtful and helpful to anybody. And so you guys go to the meeting Tuesday, come back to us on the 28th and let us know
Absolutely.
where we have to go from there. Thank you all very much. Moving on to the next item of business, 2015-2016 audit report.
Just one quick item about that I just want to pass out on the line item deeds. I'm just going to hand that, pass those right on through.
I'm sorry, I missed that one.
Yeah, I would ask you to replace the green and yellow pages in your binder from last week. The updated amounts, as we discussed a bit last week, there were two items that we just got finalized. The first was the OPEB annual required contribution of just under $54,000. And the second item was our workers' compensation policy increase, and that was just about $55,000. So those two items are the changes. You see them in the insurance section in our green sheets, and that's what yielded that 2.48%.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Now you can go into the budget.
Now a little bit about the audit.
Sorry.
Yeah, every year we just do a very... What's that?
Excited about the audit.
We're excited about the audit. Well, the audit was positive for the town
It's the last item on the agenda, come on.
Let's use the words together. And this was definitely a challenging audit year for the town and the Board of Ed, with the new finance office staff. Just middle of this year, I really have to give special thanks to Kiyoshi and our Board of Ed budget analyst and the CPA that we have on staff. She works very closely with the town accountant, and they have a great back and forth check and balance. And she really did the bulk of all of the auditor's questions, which were extremely numerous this year. While Neil and I were doing bargaining process stuff. And this annual summary shows that there was a positive surplus of $1.6 million overall that yielded ultimately a change in our general fund balance from July 1st, 2015 to June 30th, 2016, a net of about $770,000 in the positive. So the general fund balance as of this June 2016 was $13,462,303. But then you have to back out what are the things that have already been assigned or committed to other special revenue funds. When you deduct those out, you get an unassigned general fund balance of $11,247,572. So that's about 12.5% of the town's overall budget. Our turn back to that surplus, the Board of Ed portion, there was a surplus of $66,742 between the town and the board. Ours was $2,153, but that's ultimately because we put money into non-lapsing as was approved, and that transfer was $161,000. On the second page, we just do a quick highlight of the capital non-recurring funds. You see that was also favorable, and we ended up with a fund balance of $1.172 million, and that's pretty consistent with past years. So that is our quick highlight of the overall numbers. There's a comprehensive annual financial report that board members can certainly get a copy of. Matt has extra copies. This is just a very brief summary of that document. And then there's also some management letter comments that we've highlighted here. There's some ones from previous years about looking to keep working on an accounting procedures manual. And another one from last year was a fraud tip hotline, and that's recommended for both the town and the Board of Education. They would also like both the town and the board to come up with a formal policy on a whistleblower concept. So that's something that will be coming to the board.
That came from the auditors?
This is a management level comment. Yep. It was actually the second year that they've talked about it. So we have a single number. The town and Board of Ed have a fraud tip hotline. We're going to continue to get the word out about that process, but also they would like to see a more formal policy, whistleblower policy.
Thank you very much. We can, anyone have any questions for Bert?
Another nice clean audit. Relatively minor
Thank you very much.
I think you should try turning this into a PowerPoint or something and see it.
Okay, all those in favor, not in favor of that?
For animation.
If you want more
20 slides
detail,
or less.
I know Bloom Shapiro will be presenting to the Board of Finance at an upcoming meeting.
Thank you very much.
I'll bet you can get 30 slides on this.
Maybe.
On that note, before we go into public audience, I would like to tell everyone at home and those of you here that we have plenty of treats tonight. Lydia brought in chocolate-covered pretzels. We have cookies. We have chocolates. And so those of you who are at home, well, you should have been here. Because this is the place to be. But I mean, please don't leave here without eating something. I'm opening up for public audience a second time. Seeing none, our future business is Tuesday, February 28th here at 7 p.m. Anyone have anything to say? Thank you very much. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No, motions. I'm sick of asking for motions.
I thought you wanted to have